Welcome back, boys and girls. We continue from where we stopped in the last session we met. As I told you, we are dealing with Common Course A01, and the title of the text prescribed for you is Transactions, with a subtitle Essential English Language Skills. And we are in the middle of, or we have come towards the end of the first module, which is titled as Pronunciation. The last session we met, I was talking to you about stress in English. Why stress? Because if we don't use stress properly in English while communicating, it can lead to many problems. Now, it can lead to misunderstanding you. People may misunderstand you if you don't use the correct stress. Number two, it becomes a barrier to effective communication. And third, it sometimes wrong stress changes the grammatical function of the word, which is not stressed properly. And from that, we also came, I think I mentioned about the definition for stress. That is, stress is defined as varying degree of emphasis or force with which sounds are produced. And the example I gave you was that of pen and pencil. Pen and pencil. I also talked to you about syllable, unit of sound. I also told you about what is known as certain rules, common rules regarding the use of correct stress while speaking the language. For your further clarification in using the stress correctly, which actually helps your communication better, to make your communication better, I think you have to refer to a standard dictionary which gives you the correct stress. By marking the correct stress in the word, after the word is given, you have the stress marked in all the words when you refer to a dictionary. Now, with this, I come to this session in particular. We are dealing with L1 interference. Now, you may be wondering, what is this L1? L1 is nothing but the language we acquire from our surroundings when we are young. For you and me, naturally, there is no doubt L1 is Malayalam, because as we were born as small children, small babies, we listen to the language that is spoken around us, especially the lullabies. Our mothers used to sing for us in Malayalam, and that were the language spoken in the surrounding us was Malayalam, and that is the first language, L1, language 1. After that, perhaps when you were 2 or 3 or 4 years old, you started going to a preparatory school, or maybe a lower kindergarten for the initial years of your education, and slowly there the learning of a different language, maybe a second language, started. That is, for us, after Malayalam, usually we learn English, and many of us learn also Hindi as a third language, which is the national language. Now, we pick up Malayalam, our mother tongue, not by a formal educational course. No, we pick up Malayalam from our surroundings. Before going to school, we communicate very easily in Malayalam. L1, language 1. Now, language 1 Malayalam is not perhaps systematically learned but picked up. When we go to school, start our education, we start learning English. English is our second language, L2, or for some others it is L3. That depends on India being a country where a number of languages is spoken. I am talking about L1. In Tamil Nadu, L1 is Tamil. In Andhra Pradesh, L1 is Telugu. In Karnataka, the L1 is Kannada, and so on and so forth. So, for students, learners of English, I am talking about learners of English. For learners of English, when they start learning English, it is interfered by the language which they have picked up as their mother tongue, which is L1. This is a big problem in India. You see, you must have realized people who have learned English as their L1, first language, they speak English in a different way, whereas those people who picked up an Indian language first as L1 and later learn English and speak English, their pronunciation is different. That is the reason perhaps when some people come from some metros or foreign countries whose L1 is supposed to be Malayalam, they speak English well, because from their childhood, their learning of English was similar to that of we learning Malayalam when we were young. So for them, there is no difference between English and Malayalam perhaps, because perhaps English is their L1, and in some people there is no difference between English and Malayalam. They speak both the languages well. These are all exceptional cases. Normally speaking, for learner L1, for those of us like you and me, for us L1 is Malayalam, and when we start learning English and pronouncing English, we confront certain difficulties. Now, so today, in the next few minutes, I am going to talk to you about L1 interference. Let us try to understand the phrase L1 interference. Now, L1 interference is nothing but the difficulties, the interferences when one learns a second language after acquiring a first language. That is what I was trying to explain to you right now. That is, the difficulties faced by English speakers whose L1 is not English. That is why it is called L1 interference. The interference, or let us also call it as influence, negative, influences of L1 while speaking English. So you understand what is L1 interference? L1 interference is the difficulties in pronunciation, in pronouncing correctly English when they learn English after acquiring an L1, language 1, that is the mother tongue. Why is it so? Because if you remember one of the statements I made, English is an unphonetic language and Malayalam is a phonetic language. So the features of the language the features of the language, certain features of the language differ. And because of this difference in the features of the language, these learners find it difficult to pronounce certain words correctly. It is not because of their fault, but because of the influence of L1. Now let us go into this particular phenomenon, which is very important for learners of English like you and me, and who are trying to become better communicators. L1 interference. This is also known by another term. It is also known as negative transfer. Negative transfer. L1 interference is also known as negative transfer. Now, influence, I told you, influence of the mother tongue is there for the speakers of English who have their L1 which is different from English. For example, people who speak Hindi, when they speak English, we say it is Hinglish. It is actually their English is interfered or influenced by their language one, that is L1, and we call it he is speaking Hinglish. When we speak English, Malayalis, when we speak English, people say that we are speaking Manglish, a mixture of, or an English which is influenced by the Malayalam, L1, Malayalam which we have learned. So, we speak English under the influence of the pronunciation patterns, I told you, the features of the language. The pronunciation pattern in Malayalam and English is different, and that's why when we speak English, when the Malayalis speak English, they have this problem of L1 interference or negative transfer. Now, Malayalam, the main reason I told you, which I have tried to explain to you, that English is an unphonetic language, whereas Malayalam is a phonetic language. Malayalam, we write and we read that. In English, we write and there are certain pronunciations which is different from that of the spellings used, which I have already explained to you. English, and that is why it is called, English is a stress-timed language, and Malayalam is a syllable-timed language. Please take a note of this. That is, English is a stress-timed language. And Malayalam is a syllable-timed language. SY. Syllable-timed language. And this is the main reason for this L1 interference or what is known as negative transfer. Now, Malayalam is syllable timed and English is stress timed. So, Malayali speakers of English resort to spelling pronunciation because of the influence of Malayalam. Malayalis, when they speak English, they resort to a kind of spelling pronunciation, giving equal stress to all sounds in words and sentences. I would like to tell you about a few areas, maybe prominent 10 prominent areas where Malayali speakers of English are influenced by their mother tongue, L1, in certain special areas. Now, first one, we have a a few areas of L1 interference among Malayali speakers of English. Now, I think we will put them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. I mean, there are 10 areas. What is these areas? 10 selected areas where Malayali speakers of English are interfered or influenced by their mother tongue or their L1 in pronouncing correctly. That is why they have some problems. As learners of pronunciation, it is good that how Malayali speakers of English are influenced by their mother tongue. First one is, we have, because of the influence of Malayalam, we have the habit of pronouncing silent letters. In English pronunciation, though the alphabets are written, there are certain alphabets or letters which are silent. But we have a tendency, because of Malayalam, we have a tendency in pronouncing silent letters. Say, for example, first one is silent letters. Silent letters. Silent letters are pronounced by Malayali speakers. You will understand it very easily when I give you the example. See, when we pronounce a word B-U-D-G-T, budget, B-U-D-G-E-T, budget, we wrongly pronounce it as budget. D is there, budget. Actually, in English, that D is silent. It is budget and not budget. Secondly, there is a word like, another example, one more example is that of what we wear on our chest in programs, badge. B-A-D-G-E, badge. Because of the influence of Malayalam in pronouncing all the letters, what we have is, we tend to pay emphasis to this D sound. We say badge, da-j, badge, but the correct pronunciation is badge. The D is silent. Number two, the second one is, there are so many examples for silent letters. Number two is, another silent letters is the sound B, the sound B in a word like comb, C-O-M-B, comb. Actually, it is, the last sound is not B but M, comb. Have you combed your hair? There is no B sound. In the same way, C-L-I-M-B, it is not climb but climb. M sound, last one. And then we have H, the sound H, which is silent. Because of the influence of Malayalam, we tend to pronounce that sound. That is, for example, in a word like H-O-N-O-U-R, there is no honor but honor. It starts with honor. Same way, H-O-N-E-S-T, it is not honest but honest. But Malayali speakers of English has the tendency to pronounce the word as honest. Again, we have the silent letter, the silent sound, the sound of T. For example, C-H-R-I-S-T-E-N. We say for the baptism, christening of the baby. We say christening. No, it is wrong. It is christen. The T is silent. The T is silent. In the same way, we have the word M-O-R-T-G-A-G-E. It is mortgage. But we Malayali speakers of English tend to pronounce the word as mortgage. No, it is mortgage. Mortgage. In the same way, we have the letter or the sound g, which is silent but pronounced by Malayali speakers. For example, in a word like poignant, it is actually, the word is P-O-I-G-N-A-N-T. This G is silent. But because of the influence of Malayalam, we tend to pronounce that sound also and say poignant instead of the correct pronunciation, poignant. Now, that is the first area, that is, pronouncing silent letters is one of the L1 influences that we face, Malayali speakers of English face while speaking the language, which is included as a negative transfer. Now, we have only dealt with the first one, silent letters, that is, pronouncing silent letters. Now, 9 other areas are remaining, which I will be able to explain to you one by one, maybe in the two more sessions that we are going to meet. Thank you for listening to me and have a nice day.